Towson. For this guy, he is our hardwoods expert and our local college basketball maven. He gets all over the place, man. UMBC one night, Maryland the next night, College Park, streaming games in from Towson. He is Robert Canady. You can find him out online at WNST.net as well as at Buckets and Birds out on Twitter and, of course, down at Compass Point Golf where, they shut the course down when it's like 10 below. It's not good golf weather, but it is good college basketball weather. Good day to you and a happy 2/18 to you, Robert Canady.
Thank you, Nestor. Happy New Year to you as well. And, we've spoken in the past that we stay open throughout the year as long as there's no snow on the ground. But we actually do have a little bit of snow still out there on the ground from the weekend inch or so that we got over last weekend. It's the cold weather's made it linger. So the links aren't quite open yet, but we're still here doing what we do every day and getting ready for the spring season, which hopefully will be here before it'll be an earlier spring versus a later spring. But we'll be ready when the weather warms up again. We'll be ready to go.
Well, let's start this thing with the Terps. You love going to Navy and Coppin and Loyola and Morgan and Towson and getting around to the local schools. And of course, we have our relationship here with Coppin State Sports, and we'll have their games on. You can see that schedule out at CoppinStateSports.com for the games we're carrying on the men's and the women's side, as well as the Juan Dixon show. But you went down to Maryland and saw them play UMBC, and UMBC pretty, a gallant effort at least for a half into the second half. Maryland struggled with Penn State on Tuesday, but the real story for Maryland is the shame of this, much like if you're a Ravens fan and say, well, after Marshall Yonda, after all the injuries, or if you're a Packers fan and say after Aaron Rodgers, I don't know that anything's going to be right after Jackson and Bender at this point, and certainly it didn't look the part on Tuesday night. It looks like they're going to struggle against the likes of the Michigan States. There are going to be some nights they're going to be outgunned.
Yeah, it's as someone asked, you're right, I was down there Friday night for the UMBC game, and even when Bender went out, even after the game, Turgeon didn't say then how serious it was, but you could read between the lines looking at him, and when he said we'll know more tomorrow, as opposed to it being day to day, you kind of read between the lines and knew it was serious or potential of being serious. And people began to ask, like, what's in the water down at College Park? Between the quarterback situations and the basketball players.
Well, they did win a lacrosse championship, so they give them that, right?
Right, exactly. So everything, every team and every sport deals through injuries, and it's one of the things. And Turgeon was talking about that. He thinks this is a very resilient team he has here. It was funny. It was a word I had going through my mind, and then I heard him say it, and I think that's what they were. He called the first half against UMBC the worst half of basketball he's ever been associated with by any of his teams.
Wow.
They were just horrific. I think they shot like 21%. UMBC didn't shoot much better. Otherwise, they could have been up, 15 or 16 and made it a little tougher comeback for Maryland. And the Terps did. Turgeon turned around and said the second half was the most fun he's ever had coaching a game. So he literally had the highs and lows there in that one game. And, there wasn't a lot of optimism that they would beat Penn State, coming off with both those injuries. He basically said that they were going to have to rebuild their offense, that 80% of it was designed to go through Jackson. Everything that they put in through the preseason, everything, 80% of it, was going to go through him, and now they're without him for the year. And then Bender, while he's not a big offensive force, he was a guy you were counting on to, give you solid minutes and, pick up the slack from Jackson. So now they're really back to the drawing board, and they the other night against Penn State they played big. They started Tchaikovsky and Bruno Fernando in the starting lineup, and Fernando had a good game, a double with 17 points and 11 rebounds. So.
At times he looked like the best player on the floor, and at times Morcell did if he could shoot a little better.
Yeah, Morcell with his shooting is definitely an enigma. It's like you're never confident when he puts one up, but he had the penchant for hit a big shot, 3-pointer from the corner there. That was a huge shot.
I think he's going to be a good player. We're talking about a kid here playing his third, fourth Big Ten game, or 15th game in college bad. I cut him some slack on the shooting because I think it will come around. I think he'll be a kid that's going to be there a couple of years, right?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, he's definitely one that you do see him being there at least 3 years. If not a 4-year player. He's got some development to do, but the talent's there. He's tough. You keep hearing the term more than one coach in this area, I've heard them say Baltimore kids are tough. Whether they're talking about Juan Dixon or Marcel or whoever. The kids that coming out of the Baltimore programs are tough, and he's got the talent. And it's freshman, you're learning. He's going to be learning by fire. Now with the Big Ten season coming up and playing the All-Americans and future NBAers against Michigan State on Thursday night. So we'll see how that goes. But the Terps are sitting well. They've won. Despite all this, they've won 7 in a row. Good win against Penn State, and a couple tough ones coming up with Michigan State, as we mentioned, in Iowa. So we'll see how they do, and looking forward to it.
Well, I think the bar's been lowered a little bit, right? I mean, I talk about this all the time. I wrote my Ghost of Baltimore Football Past, Present, and Future, and part of the future is the difference in expectations of the fan base for the Ravens and the Orioles in any given year, right? Like the Orioles just have to roll the ball out there. The Ravens don't win 12 games. It's not good enough, right? And, I know you're a Redskins fan, and I think probably the same thing could be said in D.C. Anything short of the Stanley Cup for the Caps is unacceptable at this point, right? Just playing into the playoffs isn't good enough, and just making the playoffs would have been good enough for any Redskins fan, right? It's weird, but I think with the Terps, 2 years ago, they were so good, and you knew that there was that 90-day halo, right, with the Diamond Stones and that group, Suleiman and those guys, that they could have won in that. Now, they didn't. They didn't mesh, and, we'll talk about that for years because that will be the most talented team they had there, right? It just didn't work. Trimble is it just didn't work, right? And even Trimble's era. But this team this year, my thought was, well, maybe they could be the third best team in the Big Ten. Maybe they could be a 4 seed or a 5 seed. Maybe they could play to the 16 and give us a thrill and, extend the season by a week by winning 2 games in the tournament. I don't know now, right? You going to take Jackson and Bender out for good, and I don't even know what's over the hill. What's over the hill is somebody's going to have a calf muscle, or, Morcel's going to be, 6 for 24 shooting one night, or, whatever it's going to be, right? And they're going to play better teams. It's going to be cold. All that's going to happen. Now I look at them at 13-3 and say, 13-3 sounds like high expectation. You go out there and you survive Penn State. I think the Michigan State thing's going to be a little bit of an awakening for them.
Yeah, you summed it up pretty well there. It's the expectations for this team, were not nearly high as they were as the team a couple of years ago, the Sweet 16 run. It was a year of transition. You had your 3 freshmen that are making their transition to sophomores. Now you're down to 2 of those, and God bless Cowan. I mean, he's playing 45 minutes in a 40-minute game, it seems like, and everything is really running through him right now. And like I said, the talent with Morcel's there. And we'll see, it's good. Next man up. We'll see who, steps up.
Herder got himself into foul trouble early in the game. If Cowan gets himself into foul trouble, what happens to the offense?
Yeah, it becomes, a playground type of thing.
Because Jackson would have handled the ball, right? I mean, that's how it would have worked, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It would have been. You hope it doesn't come to that, but Cowan, you've got to like what you've seen from him, as far as running the team, this year as a sophomore. You're going to get more minutes, up front from Tomayak and from Nickens and everything. But for the most part against Penn State, they played 7 players, and like you said, no one's going to get healthier. They don't have anyone coming back. And you just, God forbid, you don't lose someone else. You don't lose a Herder, you don't lose a Cowan or a Morcel or something like that, because they're not very deep right now, and it's a gauntlet of a schedule to run against that Big Ten. Everything's been condensed this year. They end a week earlier because they moved up the tournament a week to play it in Madison Square Gardens in New York, and that was the reason they played 2 conference games back in early December. They got out of those with a split, so. Turgeon said the other night it's going to come fast and furious over the next 7 weeks, and he said they have no choice but to face it head on, and we'll see how they do. The Big Ten is down this year, if you will, but what, we heard that last year during the season as well, that it was down, and then all of a sudden Michigan started playing well, Michigan State started playing well, Maryland got on a bit of a roll, and they went in with I forget, was it 6 or 7 teams, 6 at least, that made the tournament. This year it's looking like it might not be more than 4, but again, that's a lot can change over the next next 6 to 7 weeks.
Well, you talk about things changing. You know, you saw UMBC and Towson do battle a couple weeks ago, and we sort of declared Towson, and they went over to Ireland, and they played well. I mean, it seems like they came out, wow, after the holiday here. It's been a mess for Pat Scarry. I mean, they haven't been very good. UMBC's been pretty good. I mean, to give Maryland a little run and win, I think, you know, that's going to be an interesting team to watch here over the next 6 to 8 weeks. You know, I think we understand Coppin had their struggles. They're going to go into the MEAC. We'll be paying attention to that. But once these teams get into conference play, by the time, let's say, I go off to Minnesota for Super Bowl week, I think we're going to have a better read on all of these programs, right?
Yeah, we will. This is the time of year that, you know, we really find out what they're about. You know, they've all played different, varying non-conference schedules. Some, you know, like you said, Coppin plays the guarantee games where they don't really expect to win anything. Towson played a lot of road games, you know, to get some tournament experience. They played in 2 tournaments, one in Florida, one in Ireland, you know, to get some road tournament experience. They did really well with that. Now, they came back and they lost 2 tough road games right after that at Oakland and Pitt. And, you know, the Oakland game, they were never really in it. Oakland is probably going to win the Horizon League and, you know, will most likely be a tournament team out of that conference. And Pitt, as bad as they looked early in the year, losing to Navy in the season opener, they've gotten a little bit healthier, and they were a little bit better. But, you know, Towson had a chance to win that game. I think if they had not just come up, if those 2 games had been played reverse order, I think Towson spent so much effort fighting back against Oakland, and then 2 days later have to play Pitt on the road. You know, I think that took a lot out of them. And then it didn't get any easier. They went down and played at Charleston, the preseason favorite there to win the CAA, and didn't really defend or play very well there. And that's what Pat, you know, Scarry can't be happy about. These last 2 games that Towson's lost down in the Carolinas, and then they followed up losing to Elon Tuesday night. They didn't defend very well. Now, the offense was very well, and they shot good, and they scored points. But, you know, Towson's built on defense and rebounding. And,
they're giving up 75. They're going to lose, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, you know, they're the type, they're going to put up 74, 75, but they need to hold everyone under 70, and that's typically what they do, and they out-rebound them, and they didn't do that against either of those teams. So, again, it's only 2 conference games on the road. They'll come home and play some on the road, and as an odd scheduling quirk, they play Charleston again at home this coming Sunday, so they'll be done with them. I guess you can say that's a good thing, you know, that they'll have the toughest team in the conference out of the way by the first week of the season. So it'll be
but not so good that they're not playing their best basketball as well, right?
Right.
They would have preferred to see Charleston back at Thanksgiving.
Right. Yeah, or maybe at the end of the year, like last year, they got on a good run toward the end of the year. I mean, they started, I think, 0-4 last year in the conference, but they looked horrible doing it. It's entirely different than losing these last 4 games, which none of them are really an embarrassment. I mean, even Elon, you know, a lot of people up this way may not know or much about Elon and everything, but, you know, they had won 9 games in non-conference and been undefeated at home and picked to finish 3rd in the CAA, so that's not a horrible loss either. But, I mean, you just don't, after starting 10-1, you kind of lose a little bit of that luster, you know, all of a sudden now when you're looking at 10-5 and
0-2 in the conference for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So you're behind the drawing board there, and you got to get back to it and get things straightened away right away.
He is Robert Canady. He covers all things college basketball here locally for us. It's all brought to you by our friends at Box Hill Pizzeria. The best crab cakes in Norfolk County can now be shipped anywhere in the world. You can ship yourself up to Old Emerton Road up there in Abingdon and stop by and see our friends Tommy and Chris. Get some crab cakes. Make sure you're taking home that dressing. They have the fancy labels on it now. I showed that out on the internet last week, so check that out. Also, Compass Point Golf Course is where Robert Canady does his thing down there. The best place to play this fall and winter and spring. And this is the time of the year when folks get their tournaments and stuff lined up, right, Robert?
Oh, absolutely. It's, you know, just a couple days into the new year here, and I've been busy. This is heading into my busy time of year, which sounds odd to say, but
well, everybody says, well, the clock turns. I got to get my tournament set up for the spring or the fall or the summer, right?
Absolutely. I came back into my office Tuesday after the little bit of a holiday break, and you know, I was glad to see that the message light was blinking and the inbox was full. And you're exactly right. People thinking, hey, I need to talk about that May tournament or that June tournament, you know, the charity tournaments that raise all the funds and everything. So,
Eddie Frankovic gave you a plug. He said he played in a tournament at your place in October. He said he loved it.
Great, yeah. And, I ran into one of the members at UMBC, their staff out there when the night that we were out there,
nice.
and he had played in a tournament here as well. So
nice.
So yeah, it was good to see that the word to get out in the community, and no matter where you go, you're liable to run into someone that's played Compass Point. So that's great.
Robert Canady is at Compass Point and compasspointgolf.com. You can learn more about everything they do down there. He's also out on the hardwoods as our WNST insider and historian for all things local college basketball. You can follow him out on Twitter at Buckets and Birds. I guess last thing for you in the overall scheme of things here, who do you expect to be in the tournament locally? Of these, obviously Coppin's got their struggles. You can eliminate them. I don't know that you can eliminate anybody else, at this point, or going on that sort of a conference tournament run. But I think I'm starting to become skeptical as whether the Terps can be there, and I believed all along that I had great optimism that they would be in there. Now that they're not in there, I'm like, well, then who is the hope, right? And a Towson at 0-2, that's a little disappointing, right?
It is. That would be a great question for the if you're standing at the betting lines in Las Vegas, which one you're going to put your money on. And I think right now, from what I've seen, if I had to place money on one team and one team only, I think it would be UMBC. Out of their conference, American East, and they've looked pretty good. I know Vermont will be a tough beat for them. And the other one is Navy in the Patriot League. Now, Bucknell is the prohibitive favorite there, but I've seen Navy play a couple times this year, and they had a good win the other night. And it's going to. I think those two, because outside of Maryland, everyone plays in the one bid league. There's not going to be an at-large if Towson doesn't win the CAA tournament.
UMBC is going to need to beat Vermont and Binghamton on back-to-back nights or whatever, right? Like that's the way this is going to work.
Yeah. And the big thing that'll be important is like the UMBC. They play at home court tournaments. They don't do the neutral site like the CAA and the Big Ten and the other conferences do. So they want to going in as the number one seed in that conference would be a huge thing. Meaning everyone will have to come to their place to play, whether it's the
old or new.
the old or the new. We don't know. We would hope by then it'll be the new place, but that'll be interesting to see how that unfolds over the next month as well. So,
all right, my dude, tell everybody how to find you down at Compass Point real quick. So if they want to book something golf related, they can do that. And of course, if they're looking for you, usually you're somewhere down there the court at a UMBC or a Towson or a Maryland game.
Absolutely, any of those places I can be found. You can reach us here at compasspointgolf.com. All my contact info is on the website there. We're just off almost where Route 100 ends out in Pasadena, so we're convenient to get to. But any of those ways to reach me, we'd be happy to talk to anyone about an outing or a tournament or anything coming up. When the weather turns nicer.
Always good to see you, my friend. I hope to see you somewhere on the hardwoods. I had Dick Girardi on last week from the Philadelphia Daily News, my dear friend from Baltimore, Rogers Forge. He has guaranteed me an A-plus Palestra tour whenever I want to get up to Philadelphia. Yeah, I watched the Rose Bowl the other night, Robert, and I decided I've now added that to my bucket list. I don't have a lot of sports bucket list things left. I really don't. Like things that I absolutely need to do. Like Wimbledon was on at one point, but I kind of kicked it off. My wife really wants to do the Australian Open in Melbourne, but that always falls in the middle of the football playoffs. I guess I could have done it this year had I known, right? The Palestra's still on that thing, so Girardi's going to hook that up, just so you know.
That would be awesome. Keep me in mind for that because it's on my bucket list as well. And it's funny, the Rose Bowl is the same one too. That is the one bowl game I watch every year, regardless of who's playing in it. It's just
the granddaddy of them all.
Yeah, it is. It was odd to see Ohio State and USC playing in a Cotton Bowl on New Year 2 years before New Year's Eve.
Do they still call it the granddaddy of them all? I hear that in Keith Jackson's voice or Kurt Gowdy's voice, but I don't know if they even call it that anymore, right?
I haven't heard it called that for years, but that's what we grew up with, knowing it as that. It was always, the Ohio State.
Yeah, man, I saw the sun setting over Pasadena the other night, and I thought, yeah, I got to do one of those, at some point. So, all right, Palestra, though, I got that all hooked up, and I got to go to Bloomington and see a basketball game, too. That's one place I got to go at some point. at some point.
That would be an incredible environment as well. So that's the great thing about college basketball. So many, neat environments to go to, in the area, around the country. They all are unique in their own separate way. And so definitely worse things to do than make a college basketball arena tour.
You got it, man. Take care of yourself.
All right, Nestor, we'll talk soon.
Robert Canady, my man, on the hardwoods and at Compass Point Golf down in Pasadena. You can learn more there at compasspointgolf.com. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. You want some intelligent conversation anytime, anywhere. At least my guests are intelligent. At least that much is true. Morning Newspaper delivers to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and planetfitness.com. It's still $10 a month. It's 2018. What are you waiting for? You know they have the equipment. You know there's one right down the street. You know you can afford the $10. Planet Fitness and planetfitness.com. Always there for you. Just like Dennis is always there on Thursdays from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST, all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. They also present our WNST Tech Service. If there's any breaking news on the Ravens defensive coordinator, on Manny Machado, on anything that's breaking news. If you've been on it for 10 years, you know how good it is. There are about 10,000 of you on it. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. I am Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I am on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live right here on our Facebook Live and our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.